For a 23, it's in terrible shape. All the bolts were rusted. They put this bearing in backwards. So the countershaft started leaking real bad, so it leaked the oil out, and he didn't realize it, and he kept riding it. Then they put the shock in without the bushings. Kind of did a lot of things wrong. We're doing an engine rebuild on a 23 YZ250F. Came in knocking really bad. So here's what happened. Somebody built this motor for a guy that was racing. They put this bearing in backwards. So when it's backwards, the sealed plastic piece that's on this side, right there, wasn't letting any oil get into the bearing. So the bearing went bad. So the countershaft started leaking real bad, so it leaked the oil out, and he didn't realize it, and he kept riding it. So what happened was it basically just seized. So it took the piston out, took the cylinder out, and basically it ruined the rod because it actually gold into the top of the rod. So this is a freshly rebuilt crank, Pro X rod kit. That's what he prefers. New timing chain, all the new gaskets, and we're going to go with a 270 Cylinder Works big bore kit. So we've already changed the main bearings, cleaned it all up, the new bearings in the tranny. Everything's greased. I use a lot of assembly lube. I really like the Torco assembly lube because it's got phosphorus, phosphate, and zinc in it. It works really, really well. I like to spray because I can spray it all over the gears, get a nice loosen up. I do the bearings, and Yamahas do not use center case gaskets, so we use the Permatex Moto Seal. And basically, we're going to put a light layer on here, and we're going to put the crank in and put the cases together. And a nice thin layer. You don't want it too thick because it'll just make a mess. So you want it thin, but you want enough to seal. Thin layer does just fine. Now that we got it all glued up, ready to install. Okay, after you get the cases put together, I like to just make sure everything spins free. They're all good. Now we're going to put the bolts in and torque them. Okay, we got all the bolts in and snugged. Now we're going to torque them. Manual says 12 Newton meters, so we're going to torque them to 12 Newton meters. After you put the primary gear on, and you get that tight and lock, I always Loctite the bolt. Now you have to line up, put it on top dead center. You have to line up the primary gear with the counterbalancer gear so it balances the counterbalancer with the crank. You just line up the dots. On our 23 YZ250F build, we got the clutch side all done, everything in, oil pump, everything's all in, ready to go. Now I was getting ready to put the ignition on, the flywheel, and I noticed that it's separating right here. So I'm going to have to press that back down and put it back in place. And then we're going to put this side of the motor together, and then next we'll show you some videos on doing the top end and get it ready to put it in the bike. Okay, now we're going to put the rings on the piston. It's very important when you put the piston, you got to remember Yamahas are backwards from any other engine. The bigger valves are obviously intake and the littler ones are always exhaust. You got to make sure you put it on the right direction. We're going to put the oil wiper ring on. The oil wiper, where it butts up, I like to make it look like a W when I put it in because it can look like an M or a W. So make it look like a W. when you put the oil ring in its groove. Now that the oil ring's in, we're going to put the two rings that keep the oil ring in, the little wipers. As long as there's not a mark on them, it doesn't matter which way they go. Make sure the grooves of the rings are not lined up with each other. So put one on one side of the piston, and the other one's going to go on the other side of the piston. After we get those three installed, we're going to put the compression ring on. Now the compression ring definitely has a letter on it. So you got to find the letter. The letter always goes up. And then again, put the groove, the opening to the ring on the opposite side of the piston. Now that we have that on, we're going to put the piston. I like to put the piston in the cylinder, not on the rod first. So I'll put one clip in one side. Okay, now we're going to put the piston in the cylinder. Put a little bit of lube on the skirts. I don't put too much on the cylinder, just put a little bit on the skirts. If you put too much oil, it's hard for the rings to seat. Putting the piston in the cylinder. Make sure you put the piston in the right direction. Okay, now that I got the piston in the cylinder, I put the wrist pin a little ways in and got the clip on one side. Now we're going to set it on the rod. Make sure the piston's in the right direction because it's very important. Once you line it up, the rod with the piston, and just push it through. Now time to install the clip. Okay, now I like to put a rag underneath, just in case the clip pops out, it doesn't go in the motor. Now we're going to install the clip. I like to use this special, basically it's just a valve core tool because you can put the clip in the groove to hold it and just push it in. Now after it's all in, all the wrist pins again, I like to just push it a little bit, give it a little tap with a T-handle just on both sides to make sure that the clips are in securely. I look at it with a flashlight, but just to make sure they don't pop out, I like to give it a little tap. Now we just set the cylinder down and basically ready to put the head on. Cylinder's on, and see, for me that was much easier than trying to hold the cylinder, fight the piston, put the rings in. I really like my way, and I've actually showed a couple of my other mechanics how to do it that way, and they all do it that way now. So, and here's what I always take a look with Yamahas, because I've seen this many times, because we're not used to the intake being in the front and the exhaust being in the back. So I always make sure the arrow's pointing towards the back of the motor because that's exhaust now, and the intake's in the front. So the bigger valves in the front. So I got to make sure it's on right, because I've had many Yamahas come in with problems in the pistons in backwards. I've actually done it before too. Okay, getting ready to put the head on. The head is a big thing we do. We don't like putting, obviously the heads come off, they're pretty dirty and messed up. So you can see we've cleaned this head quite well. We clean all the ports. This one happens to have beryllium valve seats on the intake and seats and valve guides. So we clean everything up. We try to get the ports as clean as possible before we put the head back on. We're going to put new valve seals in it, and we also go and we clean all the valves. This thing has some Del West intake valves in it. Somebody put some cool stuff in this bike, but we clean all the valves, we clean everything, and we're going to assemble the head, adjust the valves, and put it on the bike. The head is all cleaned up, valves are all in, new valve guide seals, everything's ready to go. Now we got a new, we got our head gasket on here. Basically going to put the head on, and after we put the head on, while it's on the bench, we are going to put the cams in and adjust the valves on, on the bench, because it's just way easier. I'm going to adjust all the valves, get everything dialed in, and then put it in the bike. If you guys have watched the video to this point, it means you're interested. So please hit the subscribe button so you can follow more of our content. Motor's all finished, ready to go in. We got the cams in, valves adjusted. Intakes I got at 5. Intakes I got at 5. Exhaust I got at 8. Now the final thing, we're just putting the valve cover, torque the valve cover, and then we are going to put it in the bike. Our 23 YZ250F is motor's back in. Just putting it back together. It's taken me some time because this thing's for a 23, it's in terrible shape. All the bolts were rusted. So I'm cleaning as I go, greasing all the bolts, wire wheeling everything that's rusty, getting it back together real good. Got some work chassis lab, motor mounts. Well, see, I work on a lot of bikes, and this bike's a 2023, and I don't think I've ever seen a 2023 bike in such bad shape. And it's due to the guy who built it originally, because it was built as a race bike. But there's so many things that they did, like countershaft bearing was in backwards, so that it's a sealed bearing on one side. They had it in backwards so that no oil was getting into the bearing. Got hot, ruined the countershaft seal. Then they put the shock in without the bushings, so you can see where the linkage was wearing the shock out. It bent the lower linkage. I got to figure out how to bend that back, and I actually did get a new shock shaft, because this right here is unfixable, because it'll never hold a seal or anything. So we had to replace this. This is just bad. Whoever put the bike together just kind of did a lot of things wrong. If we revalved the shock, we had to change this whole bottom shock shaft. This has all been replaced, and we had to bend these outer linkages back a little bit because the shock wouldn't fit in there because it got crushed. So we got all that straightened out, and we are going to put the shock in the bike. Everything fits nicely now. Everything's straightened out. We got the shock in. Now we're going to torque the bolts to spec. The lower shock bolt's supposed to be 38 foot-pounds. Now we're going to torque the upper shock bolt. The manual says 40 foot-pounds. Our 23 YZ250 motor rebuild, suspension rebuild, has definitely been a experience. Even like the crossbar pad, it's zip tied on. It's just all the little stuff. It's bad. I'm trying to make it, so it's good when he gets it back. Final step, putting the oil in. The very last thing we do on our 23 YZ250, we just got done cleaning the air cleaner. It's got a nice DT1 air cleaner with a nice DT1 cage. Works pretty good. So now we're just going to oil it. I obviously love the Fab 1, Maxima Fab 1 spray oil. Makes it way easier and less messy. Plenty of oil. Make sure you get it all the way on the edges.